All right, so May the 18th is the date we have now for Fury Usyk. All right. Obviously, we all want it to be Feb 17th. It's not. It's now May 18th. That is what that is. Hopefully, the fight takes place on that date. That's the date, right? Hopefully, it takes place. Now, going into that fight, we can talk more about who we think will win, why, the closer we get to it. Obviously, we'd hope to do that in February, but as I said, it's not going to be taking place in May. It's roughly 3 months away, thereabouts. So that is the date that we have. Now, on a boxing scene article, I'm just reading this because the article starts off with the headline, sounds something that you'd want to hear, and then you start reading the article. So, boxing scene article, it says, and I quote, WBC president exploring ways to prevent Fury versus Usyk controversy. Now, on the surface, that sounds very good because obviously, when you're talking about fights like this, which are absolutely massive, and this is a massive fight, the last thing you want is controversy going either way. Whether Fury wins a controversial decision or Usyk wins a controversial decision, you don't want controversy, especially considering the fact that a lot of eyes will be on this fight. And it's hopefully going to draw in new fans. You don't want new fans coming in and saying like, oh yeah, boxing, isn't that the fight? Isn't that the sport, I should say, where, you see dodgy decisions and it's controversial and stuff like that. And boom, one of the biggest fights that draws people in and they're made to feel right. They're like, oh, see, yeah, controversy. You don't want that. You want to minimize that. And listen, I think there are lots of ways that it can be done. I think that some of them are actually quite simple and they wouldn't actually cost really anything. There are other ways that I don't think make sense. And reading this article here, Mauricio Sulaiman, well, this don't make sense. Right? This is the guy who was talking about VAR. I know we can call it VAR, but that's what we'll call it for Fury versus. This is a guy. Sulaiman has so much power with the WBC. It's his organization. But the rules there are so open to interpretation. He can make them up as you go along. And I'm taking a scene out of Spider-Man here, but as they say, as Uncle Ben said to Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility. He has great power being in charge of the WBC, but boy, does he abuse it. He's like a dictator that's just gone tyrannical. That's what Sulaiman is. There's no two ways about that. I'll talk more about that now in a sec. I'll read this article here. It says, and I quote, WBC President Mauricio Sulaiman has proposed radical changes ahead of the undisputed heavyweight encounter between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, hoping to prevent significant controversy. Fury and Usyk were supposed to meet in the first undisputed heavyweight encounter in 25 years on February 17th, now May 18th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, after Fury sustained a cut on his right eye following a sparring session. Speaking to Sky Sports, the WBC president revealed that he hoped to increase the number of judges increase the number of judges for the undisputed title fight from the traditional 3 to 5 or 6, but confirmed the proposal, thank God, was rejected by all parties associated with the fighters. Can you blame either fighter for wanting that rejected or parties associated? I couldn't. Despite the refusal, Sulaiman confirms he would still recommend increasing scoring officials for the contest. Boxing is a sport in which change is very difficult to get. Sulaiman told Sky Sports, we're purists, traditionalists. We don't want changes. I will continue to make the proposal. Some like the idea. We'd love to meet them. Some of the people in the decision-making process, we will see. We had proposed to use 5 or 6 judges, however, that was not considered. It did not happen. I would still recommend it. Anyone can have a bad night. If one judge has a bad night and the other two get it correct, you still save the fight. But the guy has still won. You're not... Obviously, you'd look and be like, what the hell was he watching? But you're not... As long as the right guy won... That's the only intention, to make sure no controversy. We have the biggest fight in 25 years in the heavyweight division, so we have to try to do our best. Sulaiman wants to use video technology for the highly anticipated fight, with further aim to overrule incorrect calls by officials, such as headbutts missed. In Fury and Ngannou, when Fury was cut, the referee didn't see any action that made the cut, ruled it a punch, and the British Boxing Board of Control and myself looked at the screen, the big screen in the stadium, and saw the headbutt. So we called it an official headbutt, WBC. We called it officially, I should say, a headbutt. But the idea of having the possibility of rewinding major controversy happening in the ring to make the right decision, the right call at the time, is basically it. To have the absolute certainty that there will not be controversy, that in a fight of this magnitude would be absolutely unacceptable. So basically what he's saying there, like, as I said in that video, right, VAR in boxing simply would not work, right? You're stopping a fight to rewind this from different angles, this, that, and the other. It just wouldn't work, right? It just would not work, right? The referee, he makes the decisions at the end of the day. If he rules something a punch, I know it's easy to look back on the replay, and there have been instances where you've looked and said, okay, look, that really was a headbutt, or that was, a trip and shouldn't have been called. At the end of the day, I guess it kind of is what it is in some sense, right? But you could look at that and say, look, human error with the referee. The judges, right? And with the referee, and sometimes it genuinely is, right? With the referee, now, I will say, if you look at certain fights over the years, you could look and say, oh, the referee has done something a bit, But I just don't, I can't envision a fight where, especially if the referee makes a rule and then you've Sulaiman there sitting ringside and again, he's only the WBC. He's not, the British Boxing Board of Control. He's not the State Athletic Commission, etc. He's coming up and saying, replay, boom, overruled. It's like, what? He's done that. I think he done it on the Canelo undercard. I know he on one of Canelo's undercard, I think with the John Ryder one. And I know we definitely did it with the Charlie Edwards, Julio Martinez fight a couple of years ago. So I don't like that. With regards to judges, here's the thing, right? He's talking about having 5 or 6 judges. Now, I know something similar was done with the World Boxing Super Series when that was a thing, but that was more so to avoid draws. So I think there was a 4th official that if, we'll say there was a draw, his scorecard would come into it and hopefully avoid the draw. I think they tried their best to avoid draws, not necessarily controversial decisions. There was 1 or 2 in that as well. Like Briedis when he fought that Glover guy. That was pretty controversial. Although I don't think that was actually one of the final fights, if I'm not mistaken. I think the better idea is pretty simple. Maybe give the judges a monitor, so if they're missing any action, they can get a better view of it. Or the best one, which, shock horror, in the way the world is now with regards, resources, money and stuff like that, obviously times are tough for a lot of people. A way that would save everybody money would simply be get the judge to explain their scorecard. Maybe just get him to do that. That'd be the easiest. Do you know why it would be the easiest? Because if a judge comes with a dodgy scorecard, as we saw with Glenn Feldman when Rob Tebert, at the time it was ID Boxing, it's now Boxing News, tried to get an interview with Glenn Feldman after the Joshua Usyk rematch where he scored that fight inconceivably for Anthony Joshua. Bizarre. He didn't seem too keen on even mentioning anything to Rob Tebert. He didn't seem too keen on speaking. If they were obliged to say, this is my scorecard, this is how I scored it, this is why, a lot of them wouldn't want to be doing that. And I think a lot of them would actually look at it a little bit more objectively than some of them do. Because the British Boxing Board of Control, loads of people, TV networks and stuff like that will all say the same thing. Oh, boxing is subjective, this, that and the other. Listen, yes, in some sense it is subjective, but when you're seeing 9 times out of 10 the home fighter getting the decision or a very close fight and the home fighter getting an absolutely massive advantage on the scorecard, I will never, ever, ever understand how in that 10th round, Devin Haney-Lomachenko, one judge gave that round to Devin Haney. I would love to hear him explain, him specifically, how he managed to look, I believe it was the 10th round anyway, where Lomachenko was he was dominating that round, and the judge can look at that and say, yeah, 10 points to Devin Haney, 9 to Lomachenko. Explain that. That would be better than saying have a 5th or a 6th or VAR or this, that and the other. This is all nonsense as far as I'm concerned. And Sulaiman saying, we want change, this, that and the other. Listen, boxing is not perfect. But you start overcomplicating this and doing the things you want to do, you're going to drive a wedge between fans, simple as. I think you're already doing it, quite frankly, because as I said at the start of this video, Sulaiman is a guy who, he makes the rules up as he goes along. He picks and chooses who he's going to give, special privileges to, and then the ones who he doesn't. Savannah Marshall wins the WBC title and straight away mandatory. Artur Beterbiev, getting mandatories against guys who hadn't fought a WBC sanctioned bout in years, hadn't won a Schedule 12 rounder in God knows how long. Marcus Brown gets made mandatory and he has to fight him. Charlo's coming up on 3 years without defending that title. Still nothing. And Sulaiman may, be one of these guys who's power pissed and thinks, this is great, this is great. At the end of the day, when you make a mockery of your mandatory system like that, when you show clear bias and clear favoritism towards certain fighters, the Tyson Furys, the Canelos of the world, right? All that's really going to do is fighters coming up are going to look at the WBC and say, do I really fancy fighting and going down that road? Because how long will it take if I decide to go down the WBC road? How long will it take for me to get a mandatory crack? Will I get a fair shake? Will they be objective? Sulaiman has walked with fighters to the ring, his champions to the ring, like Canelo. I think he walked with Wilder at least once. That shouldn't be. You should be sitting there, if you are there at ringside, and just objective. May the best man win. Shouldn't matter. But you're showing clear favoritism towards a specific fighter, your fighter. Essentially, you're like a promoter. And if you're a fighter, you're thinking, hang on a minute, the IBF don't do it. The WBA, for all their flaws, I don't think they do it. The WBO don't do it. I don't. If I'm going in, am I going up against the promoter? Am I going up against the commission? Am I going up against the sanctioning body too? I don't want that. And I think if a fighter, a manager, a promoter is looking at that and thinking, hang on a minute, we don't want our fighter to be sat on the sidelines waiting around for 2 years while that champion doesn't even fight anybody in Charlo's case. All this, Sulaiman may think, he's smart and this, that and the other, but all he's doing is just dragging. The WBC's name was never great to begin with, but he is dragging it so far through the mud. I mean, it's almost invisible now. It's got that much crap over it. That's the way it is. So Sulaiman can say all he wants about, I want to avoid controversy, I want 5 judges, I want 6 judges, blah, 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 yada, 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 yada. A better idea would be have the judges explain their scorecard. Maybe then you might see a little bit less controversy. You might, because you never know. I mean, people will just try and spoof their way out of it, and God knows. But 5, 6 judges, thank God both parties seem no. This is a big fight. I hope to God we don't see controversy. I hope if Tyson Fury wins, he wins it fair and square, and there's no BS on the scorecards, the same way if Alexander Usyk wins. I hope whoever wins deserves to win. If it's close, hopefully the right guy wins. If it's close and it could go either way, so be it. If it's close and it's a draw, again, so be it. Makes me want to see the rematch. There you go. I don't want to see controversy. But I think that all this overcomplicating and doing this and doing this and doing this, you're just looking at it, you're like, what the actual... It's a boxing match. I don't like replays, the VAR in football. I don't like it at all. I think it's just... I just look at that and I'm like, why? I just like, why? No. Please. And yeah, you could say, gee, insert... I don't care. Don't like VAR in football. Please get rid of it. They won't, but please get rid of it. And in boxing, it just would not work. And having 5, seriously, no, please. So Sulaiman coming up with all this, saying we're going to do this and this and this and this and this. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. I don't think there's anything he's really come out with since he's been in charge of the WBC that I've looked at and thought, certainly in a boxing sense, that I've looked at and thought, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Nothing. This guy really is like a tyrannical dictator who's drunk on power. And that's what he is. And at the end of the day, all that's going to happen is, as I said, people are just going to be looking at thinking, do I really want to fight for the WBC title? If I go down the WBO road, I want to get my mandatory crack a year, if even. I go to the WBC route. How long will I be waiting? A year? 2? 3? Will I even be in the same weight division in 3 years' time? Who knows? So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Hope to God, no changes. 3 officials. I just hope there is no controversy in this fight. I really do. I hope there's no controversy. We'll know on fight night, I guess. We'll know on fight night. I'll leave it there, people. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you disagree? Do you think that no, having 5, 6 officials will improve it? Do you think that my idea of just giving the judge a monitor, just give him a monitor or something, and at the very least, explain their scorecards, and also explain the scorecards, but we want a full transcript of what's said. So, but we're not listening to it. We can at least read, and the judge says, well, I liked his aggression, even though he landed no shots, and he got hit 8 times in that round. But I like the boots. They glow in the dark, and he was running so much they lit up. Does that work? Not really, but that's what I'm going to go with. That's my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments. I hope you enjoyed it, people. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And as for now, I will leave it there. Peace.